Hey, welcome. We're diving into something really critical today. How do you make those life and death decisions when you're on the front lines of a medical mission? We're going to walk through a bioethics guide that's all about equipping healthcare professionals to serve with both deep compassion and, just as importantly, unwavering integrity.
So, to really get to the heart of this, the guide we're looking at bases everything on this one verse from Micah. And this isn't just a nice sentiment, It's presented as the core mandate. These three pillars, doing justice, loving mercy, and walking humbly, they're the bedrock for every single ethical decision we're about to explore.
The source material uses this really powerful analogy to frame the whole challenge. Think about it like this. Your mission is a boat, and you're heading down a river towards the destination of healing. But right under the surface, there are these powerful hidden currents, all these ethical dilemmas that can so easily spin you around or just run you aground. So the big question becomes, what's your rudder? What's going to keep you on a faithful course?
At its heart, the vision behind medical missions is both simple and, well, profound. It's about weaving biblical truth together with compassionate hands-on care. It's all about combining healing for the body with hope for the soul and making sure that every single action reflects the character of Christ.
Okay, so we've got this noble mission. But remember that river analogy? That mission immediately runs into some really tricky ethical currents. This is where theory gets messy, where it meets the high-stakes reality of being out in the field. And it often starts with a classic, absolutely gut-wrenching dilemma.
Let's make this real for a second. Imagine you're in a remote clinic. Resources are incredibly limited. You have one ventilator, but two patients, a young mother and an elderly village leader, both desperately needed to survive. How do you possibly choose? This is the kind of impossible decision that missionaries can face. There are no easy answers here, which is exactly why having a solid ethical framework isn't some kind of luxury, it's an absolute necessity.
And that ventilator scenario, that is not an isolated case. The source points to these common pressures all the time. Feeling pushed to compromise your core beliefs just to fit in, running up against cultural norms that might conflict with your convictions about the sanctity of life, and just the constant moral strain of trying to figure out who gets what when there isn't enough to go around. So we're not just talking about logistics here. These are deep ethical minefields.
Now, what's so interesting about this slide is how it tackles a really common pitfall. It's so easy to think, hey, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, right? And look, cultural humility is absolutely vital, but the source material is crystal clear on this. Respect for local customs has a limit. It can never be the final word when it clashes with what are considered foundational biblical principles of morality and human dignity.
So if the local culture or the circumstances of the moment can't be your ultimate guide, then what is? Well, this is where we get our compass. The guide proposes a set of foundational truths that are designed to give clear, reliable direction no matter how turbulent the waters get.
Everything starts right here, with this concept of Imago Dei. This is the non-negotiable starting point. The belief that every single person, regardless of their age, their health, their status, their background, has this profound inherent worth simply because they are made in the image of God. Literally, this one idea changes everything. It shapes every single interaction and every single decision.
And building directly on that idea of Imago Dei is the sanctity of life. This principle says that because life is a gift from God, it is sacred from its very beginning all the way to its natural end. This becomes a really critical guardrail, especially when you're in situations dealing with tough end-of-life care decisions or difficult prenatal diagnoses.
And remember that verse from Micah 6:8? Well, here's the justice part, put into a practical medical context. It's not just about rights or punishment. It's about the fair, equitable distribution of care. It means you're actively working to make sure that the most vulnerable, the most overlooked people in a community have access to healing. The key point is that justice here is about proactive, compassionate equity.
And what's really cool is how these theological principles line up so well with established medical ethics. This four-part framework is pretty standard in healthcare. Autonomy, which is about honoring a patient's choices; beneficence, always acting to do good; non-maleficence, the famous do no harm; and justice, making sure care is fair. The guide just views these through the lens of Imago Dei, which gives them a deeper, faith-based dimension and makes them a really practical tool for those complex cases. Okay, so we have the principles. But how do you actually put them into practice when the pressure is on and things are moving fast? This next section is all about building these ideas into concrete strategies that teams can use right there on the ground.
Check out this practical, step-by-step model that the guide proposes. And I want you to notice the very first step. Before you even look at the medical charts, before you consider the cultural factors, the whole process starts with prayer and scripture. It's an intentional choice to ground the entire decision-making process in a spiritual context first. Then you bring in the analysis and expert consultation before you finally act.
Now, to make that model actually work, here are 3 key organizational strategies. First, don't make these big decisions alone. Create an advisory team that has both medical and theological experts. Second, you formally adopt that scripture-first model we just looked at. And third, be proactive. Don't wait for that ventilator crisis to happen. Create your protocols for resource scarcity before you ever need them.
All right, so this is about bringing it all down to the daily habits, the things that actually build an ethically strong mission. It's about making prayer a reflex, not a last resort. It's that daily discipline of balancing cultural respect with biblical conviction. And it's about building a team culture where asking for help and seeking wise counsel is seen as a strength, never a weakness.
So, after navigating all of these complex currents, where does the river lead? What's the ultimate destination we have been aiming for through all of this?
It really all comes back to this. The goal isn't just to be ethical in some sterile academic sense. It's to embody wisdom and humility and courage in every single patient interaction. According to this guide, the true measure of success is whether the care you provide is a clear reflection of Christ's own compassionate character.
And we'll end on a question that the source itself brings up for more thought. Medical missions, as you know, often have this dual purpose: physical healing and spiritual outreach. So how do you ethically balance the urgent duty of medical care with the deeply held call to share one's faith, making sure that one never compromises the other? It's a huge question, and it really gets to the very heart of this work. Thanks for tuning in.